People of African Descent New Thought Group proudly present Celebrating Our Soul, Consciously Creating Change. Our partner, New Thought Media Network, is offering this interview series to highlight some of the luminaries who will present at this amazing event. For more information, go to padntg.com. Stay tuned for a wonderful interview. Peace and blessings.
Hello, everyone. I'm Reverend Elzia Sekou, Senior Minister at CSL Denver, and I have the honor and privilege to be here with my friend, my mentor, my colleague, the Reverend Dr. Andriette Earl, who's going to be giving a keynote at the Celebrating Our Soul, which if you haven't signed up yet, you need to get on that keyboard and get busy because it's going to be such an event for New Thought practitioners from African descent. And so I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Andriette, and she's going to tell us about her keynote and tell us about the new book that she's just put out that's going to just, help us keep that vibration high. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Doc. How are you? And thank you for joining me.
I am doing great, El, and thank you so much for the invitation. This is, I'm a bit giddy with all of this. This is my first time participating in the People of African Descent New Thought Conference. For the past 3 years, actually, I've been in a very difficult place in a caregiving role and very, very challenging. So my talk, I'm so grateful for the invitation because my talk is on relationship. And I have to tell you that going through an experience with dementia and Alzheimer's and a sense of betrayal and other things, it has been a 3 years just packed with transformational opportunities that all center on relationship. Let me be clear. I slipped and fell. Actually, I didn't just fall. I slid. I slid deep into the dark side.
Wow.
What happens when you're not paying attention? What happens? Well, let me just say, when you're not conscious.
Yes.
The notion of consciously creating change is very different than what I did was create change unconsciously. And they feel very different. So I know this viewer group won't know anything about that.
Yes.
But let me just say and save them the trouble of the firsthand experience that consciously creating change is very different than just falling and tumbling into it and dragging oneself up out of it.
Yes.
Very, very different. So I have a lot of, I'm drawing from that experience as well as, thank you. You mentioned my book, which is From the Inside Out, a continuing spiritual evolution. And that's what I know I'm on. The book itself is a compilation. I've been writing for Science of Mind magazine for, 13 years now. So we took about 12 years of the compilation, and I was honored to this year write, oh my goodness, I almost said last year. Well, because I wrote it last year, to write the February guides for Black history. And so I got an opportunity to do some tweaking and all, but the book contains those pieces. And so it's been an activity, a labor of love, frankly.
Yes.
A labor of love and healing. All of this came at a time when I was declaring an intention of consciously creating change in my life. And I got to tell you that I wish, all through school, I was rather a quick study and a bright student. Not this time. I was a slow learner, very slow learner, resistant, just all of the things that we oftentimes, we see along the learning path, this notion of the continuing spiritual evolution can look any which way, depending upon when you catch us in it, you know? So
Yes.
this is
Yes.
what I'm bringing to my keynote, which is on the opening night on Thursday, August 1st. And it continues to evolve. Let me just tell you what I thought it was about. It has evolved beyond that. And
Wow.
frankly, I'm having a little more fun with it in the evolution of it. So we'll
And,
be there with me. It's perfectly imperfect relationships.
and
Yeah.
I think it's perfect that you were at the opening night from my little preview, because this whole conference is a cross section of New Thought practitioners of African descent across the diaspora, if you will, in terms of New Thought,
Mhm.
Unity, CSL, and FBL, and Divine Science. And so there's that sets the stage for this whole idea of relationships, so it can cover from individual organizations to communities, all the way down to the individual,
Mhm.
of what it means to be consciously in change.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I have a little bit of preview to know some of the challenges you were going through.
Yeah.
And I appreciate this, because I was involved in the first conference, gave a workshop, and for this year, the thing that's important to me is, how do we get back to our historical perspective as people of African descent, in terms of consciously creating change and being socially aware, and historically spirituality has been our base for all of it. So I'd love to hear you speak a little bit on that.
Well, I don't know quite how to speak on that, but let me tell you what came up for me
Okay.
is when I was doing the research for
Yep.
the Black History, the guides for Science of Mind magazine during Black History.
Mm-hmm.
It wore me out because my dive was a deep dive. I had a list of those folks that I thought, I wanted to bring, and then they led to others. And
Mm-hmm.
what I experienced was a steady diet
Mm.
of the challenges,
Mm-hmm.
of the oppression, of the depths of oppression,
Mm-hmm.
and how folks of African descent that were enslaved, and some that were not.
Yes.
Some that were not. So there were those who were trafficked, literally, and we have their narrative and their stories, and then those who were born free,
Yeah.
some of whom had to fight for staying free because
Mm-hmm.
there was nothing to support freedom for Black folks on any level.
Right.
Not freedom for their thinking, freedom for
Mm-hmm.
their speaking, freedom for
Mm-hmm.
their actions. So the
Mm-hmm.
systems in place were intentionally set to ensure that there wouldn't be a consciousness of freedom.
Yeah.
So I love this opportunity for us to be engaged in celebrating our soul,
Right.
because the times are, huh, the times now feel as if there are those powers and intentions. Let me take back power, because I'm not affirming that. There are those who are holding an intention of setting back,
Yes.
to a time when folks of African descent who look as if they are of African descent are not allowed to experience freedom on every level.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I, you know, uh, you just bring to mind, in terms of, and in terms of relationships, and trying to put it in context, and about our people and the oppression that they went through. I consider myself somewhat of a amateur genealogist, and on one side of my family, I've gone back to my great great grandfather, who was a slave owner, and then my great 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 grandfather, who came over here as part of the revolution,
Mhm.
American Revolution. And so there's some angst there. There's a relationship I got to have, as you say about the book, internally and
Oh,
externally to work
yes.
through all that stuff.
Yes. I am such a fan of Finding Our Roots, Skip Gates' work.
Yes.
And in one segment, he is walking Angela Davis, our beloved Angela Davis, through her genealogy,
Yes.
which takes her back to bona fide the Mayflower. And
Mm-hmm. Yes.
we got to
Yes.
watch her try to process
Yeah.
all of that.
Yes.
And because I'm a fan, that hasn't been the first one. What it has done for me, I have a dear, dear friend who I speak to regularly, and he's aware also in his genealogy, and he of the European and the African, and
Yeah.
so there is this forgiveness
Yeah.
that is required of all of us.
Yes.
There's this acceptance that's
Yeah.
required of all of us. This notion of perfectly imperfect relationships is no joke.
Yes.
It's absolutely no joke. And I pray that I can like scratch the surface
Mm-hmm.
because there's such a depth in terms of what we can learn. Here's a thing. I wonder how many people have had this as their experience. I felt as a young person that one, I had good home training. And
Mm-hmm.
so I had good relationships.
Right.
And most of my life, I've had that. And there have been some pitfalls. There have been some places where I haven't behaved well, and they didn't know necessarily that I had the good home training that I do have.
Yes.
And
Yes.
all of that is in in the vessel of my life, in the
Yes.
story of my life.
Yes.
Well, COVID, I'm an introvert to begin with, but I've trained myself to express more in what could be more recognized is extroversion.
Mm-hmm.
So during COVID, though, for the first time in my life, I have had permission, if not the legal requirement, to, to draw back, to be
Yeah.
still, to bring myself outside of all of that connection that I learned to do. And I have to
Mm-hmm.
tell you, when in 2022, when we kind of emerged and we wanted to encourage people to come back to service and all, when folks started coming back, it was scary for me.
Yeah.
An unconscious scariness.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted people and I was
Mm-hmm.
glad to see them. And then as they started moving close, it was difficult for me.
Right.
Very, very difficult to break out of that frame of just being by myself, talking to people at a distance, but being with them was very different. So there's so much that's here in
Yeah.
this notion of relationships,
Yeah. Yeah.
because there are relationships that have formed with folks who have never been together in the same room. And they
Yeah.
have a closeness and an intimacy and a certain vulnerability that they've created, which is rich. And
Yes.
then it's the challenge of trying to get together and having all the missteps in that. We have a lot of learning to do and a lot of opportunities to practice this stuff.
You know, as you say that, and I know you're out in California, and the good Lord has turned the heat up on y'all a little bit out there. But
It's
but again, I just thought about that, and I thought about there's another relationship that we have to look at and
Mhm.
begin to understand. I like the way you put it in this broader context of understanding and forgiveness and an active participation in that process.
Forgiveness, it just rolls off the tongue.
Yes.
If I
Yes.
had money for every time I said forgive or forgiveness or forgiving or
Yes.
forgiven, any of that, you know what I mean? I would
Yes.
have it laid out. Do you understand me? But it's very different. The difference between saying it
Yeah.
and having that as the experience. Over these last 3 years, there have been times when I've been embarrassed,
Mm.
with how difficult it's been for
Mhm.
me or how long it took me to even come to forgiveness
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
certainly self
Yeah.
and everybody else.
Yeah. Yeah. Like that James Brown song, a lyric that says saying it and doing it is two different things, just as much
Oh,
difference as night and day.
entirely different.
Yeah.
Day and night, night and day, all of that. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a real opportunity. One of the things that I'm the senior and founding minister of Heart and Soul Center of Light in Oakland. And one of the things that we have been our part of our theme for this year is looking at how this stuff works. So
Mm.
this summer we're using the little booklet It Works as a
Yes.
pre-read, and we're
Yes.
just wanting to focus our attention on some basics, kind of peel back the illusion of complexity and look at some basics to acknowledge this stuff works. But it doesn't work just because we know about it.
Right.
It works when we work it. And so how do I, and now I can teach from it because I went sometime with not applying it, not practicing
Yeah.
in the ways that transformed my life. I'm a real testimonial. I came to this teaching in a time that I call when I was living under the bed,
Uh,
because I was in a deep depression and was having and Terry Cole Whitaker, her little television ministry was the
mhm.
thing that had me rise up and start working with affirmations and doing the work and the study and the spiritual practice. So I know I have absolutely no excuse. I absolutely came up and know and am, can be the poster child
Yes.
for how this works.
And
And then I came to a point where I acted like I don't know what to do. I don't have any idea how to get out of this. This is just a mess, and it's gonna keep being a mess until it runs out of mess, I guess. I'm not clear.
well, it speaks beautifully to the title of the conference, which is consciously creating change. And as I'm sitting here listening to you, as you go through the here's and those of what happened, you was in this point of, oh my goodness, and then you had to say, well, wait a minute, I got to grab a hold of this thing, and you
Yes.
begin to consciously create the space that you are now. And I'm
Yep.
and I'm 100% sure that that's what's in that book, Going Inside Out. And I can't wait for the book and the conference, because I'm sure it's just going to be something that's going to touch my heart.
Same.
Because as one of our fellow New Thought practitioners, Les Brown, says, you either in a challenge, just left the challenge,
Yep.
or headed towards the challenge. So
Yep.
so we need to be prayed up and as you say, working on that inside out. So I
Oh, I'm
I
telling you,
applaud that.
100%. And let me be clear, I rode it till the wheels fell off. Let me just, this is not a mountaintop ministry. This is not me saying, oh, y'all be like me, because I got it. I know exactly, wrote the book, did the little articles, all of that. I struggled through the whole thing till the wheels fell out. And then
I love
I
it.
said, wheelless. I said, what if you consciously create some change rather than just riding this till it wrecks?
I
So,
love it. I love it. Now here's a good segue, because there's going to be a youth contingency, young people contingency at the conference.
mhm.
And given the backdrop of what our young people are facing and having to work through and wrestle with, this idea of making relationships with self and going through things is I think on the front burner for what they need. And so what would you give us some advice or some tips, however it comes out, in terms of some intergenerational sharing and understanding to get to this kind of a point?
I certainly have no advice. Um, and the insight I have is that there are some things that we as elders know and understand. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? There
Yes.
really are some basic things, and we can be the the ones who, the what do they call it in the town crier. We can
Yes.
be town criers. We can be the ones to say the bridge is out. You know, we can be the
Right.
ones to say, when it rains like that, this
Hmm.
happens. Or when there
Hmm.
hasn't been rain, this happens, using rain as a metaphor. We can
Yes.
be the ones who can benefit from all of can help others benefit from all of our experience. Now, having said that, young people now are having some experiences that we don't know nothing about, that we haven't been there, we haven't walked that walk. Growing up for me, a child of the 50s, 60s, it was very, very different.
Yeah.
Now, it had its own challenges and
Yeah.
all the things,
Yeah.
but I'm not equipped to start, letter and number all the. I can give you kind of the globe now. There's some universal principles here. There's
Yes.
some always wet. Water's wet. Oh, and it was wet then. It's wet now. It's gonna be wet. And so there are some places where we can support. I
Hmm.
caution us as elders
Hmm.
to try to run the thing,
Yes.
to try to act like we can speak of our experience in a way that supports theirs.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not sure, and a lot of us haven't learned to speak clearly to ourselves yet. So we're not equipped to kind of bridge that
Yes.
generational. So I say be cautious.
Yeah. Well,
Cautious, be clear about the intention, and be
and
cautious.
one thing I've heard a couple of the other interviewees speak to in terms of the conference is it's like a family reunion, right?
Mm.
And when you were speaking in that idea of the elders, there was always in this family reunion that every got little pockets of game playing and storytelling and kids running. And I think in that container, right, if we can create that container where, I know when I was little, I tried to sneak up on the grown folk talking until they saw me and say, "This is
Yes,
grown folk talking." They tell you to get out of there.
yes,
But I would grab a little something when I heard it. Some of it I
yes,
didn't quite understand.
yes,
So I
yes.
love that idea that you just put forward, because they are really doing some things and going through some things that, I mean, I have two young people and I can't relate,
Hmm.
not fully.
I
Uh,
understand.
and when I try, I make a fool of myself. So I don't want to do that too many times.
Not too often. I think that's the key. That's something that's different. As baby boomers, we've just had a lot to say, just too much to say.
Yeah.
So maybe I do have some advice. Hush. Listen. Maybe I'm thinking that for a lot of us, the advice would be to listen.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
actively listen.
Yes.
Be curious. Be curious. Kind of earn the right to give some advice.
Mm-hmm.
Make
Mm-hmm.
some suggestions.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking
That's
about folks raising their own children. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about in the larger community as we look at youth. I know there were folks who interrupted my activities out and, does your mother know you here? And, all the
yes.
things.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
a different time. And everybody can't do that. Everybody hadn't earned the right
Right.
to interject themselves
Yes.
into situations, circumstances with youth that they don't know anything about or understand or have empathy
Yeah.
around.
Yeah. And I think that's key, because oftentimes wisdom and understanding and knowledge is associated with age, and that's not necessarily so.
Yes.
Um, and so,
Say that. Yes. Yes, yes, yes.
and so let me ask you this: in terms of this work of relationship building, relationship healing, uh, what have you found through your research and your writing are some common misconceptions that people have about this kind of a journey, no matter where that takes place, whether it's at the individual or small group, large group? Have you found any kind of misconceptions in your work that people have?
All the time. And sometimes they're mine,
Mm-hmm.
just to be clear. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's my own misconception around it. One of the things that popped right to my mind is is this whole notion of diversity and inclusion, equity, social justice. One of the kind of common misconceptions is that it only benefits some.
Yes.
And I often, you know how you overtalk the pundits, so they're on television, on the podcast or whatever, but we busy talking. And I want somebody to say, "Wait, hold it. You've missed the point.
Yeah.
This is not diversity, equity, and inclusion, and social justice, and all of this work is for everybody.
Right. Right.
It's for everybody. There's nothing." My definition, whatever it is of justice, it has to be about everybody. It can't be justice for me and nobody else.
Right.
A justice for us, Elle, you and I,
Right.
you know, and everybody else is just laws. It's for everybody.
Yeah.
Absolutely everybody. And sometimes the insight is that that's the real fear.
Yes.
Is that it's for everybody.
Yes.
That it's the great equalizer in the sense that when everybody is included, when everybody has access to justice and has that as their experience. I went to, just last month, I was in Montgomery, Alabama. And I went to the museum there that Attorney Brian Stevenson put together. It's the 3 different sites. And it took my breath away. Just to me, that experience gave me clear evidence of what a clear intention, a clear vision, aligned with the required action can do.
Right.
What it can produce, what is manifest and demonstrated out of that. It's as if it could be a model for what we teach and endeavor to practice.
Right. Right. That's and you know, that whole idea of intention, because as I listen to you talk about the book and the keynote and knowing a little bit about the impetus, there was some intention that had to be placed in that situation that created this brand new thing, right? This opportunity, this book, this healing that people will be able to receive from that. And you know, I think as we continue to do this work of being, you know, spiritual teachers or leaders or informers, or you know, how do you see the interplay with the broader society, if you will, if that makes sense?
Say some more about the interplay. I want to be sure I'm clear here.
So, you know, like now we spoke a little bit about the climate, and now we got the political stuff coming up, and all of what we're doing is an interplay. We talk about diversity. Diversity means everybody got a seat, everybody got a responsibility. Can't nobody, you know, so there's some interplay there. And I'm just curious in terms of the title of the conference and everything, and the book about relationships, what does that interplay feel like for you?
What I'm aware of, here's what comes up for me, Al, is that even when I was playing crazy, you know, even when my prayer is that folks would not have recognized me. You know, of course they did, but my prayer would be that can't be her, because look at how she is being thinking. You know, I still had, at my core, I still had a certain clarity and a certain intention for my own spiritual evolution. Now, I can't tell you why I took such a diversion, other than I certainly learned and grew. And I mean, I learned stuff about me I didn't want to know. And so I've come away realizing that I needed to know. Now, I share that now in response to your question because I think I'm the micro of that. I think as a society, as a culture, as the United States, we are trying not to know who we are. We are afraid of our shadow.
Yeah.
And there are those things, there are those experiences that for the folks who aren't willing to, I guess, get it through meditation and centering, insights from centering and prayer, etc., and whatever it takes, you know what I mean? The light. If you're not willing to go deep into the light, then you're gonna have to go deep into the dark in order to get it. And it all once, in a sense, it don't matter which one you go, because you'll emerge with enlightened.
Yes.
With
I love that.
Awareness and appreciation for life, real, for real life.
Yeah. Oh, I love that, Doc. I love that. Whether you go through the light or the dark, we on a holistic circle. So you just gonna come back around, and so you can choose where, maybe not which path you want to take, but the enlightenment, illumination of, oh, I'm back here now, and I'm at a higher point. What a great metaphor there, which most people don't want to deal with, is facing and dealing with the dark.
Oh, I'm telling you, I understand it. That's hard. That's hard. And I think in my life, it required that first I kind of be beat down by my legit life experience, situation, circumstance. I was so, heartbroken. I was so, and then and it was from there that I could see something more eventually. Yeah. So my ego, would have preferred it to have been, the enlightenment experience, just, an inside out walking or in the field or at the ocean or something sweet. But it wasn't that at all, baby. I got skid marks to prove. I've been through the thing. I'm trying to tell you.
And
around and through.
I love that, and we're going to step away to a quick commercial advertisement, if you will, to just, I believe, bring the wholeness of this whole thing together, and we'll be right back, everyone.
Right.
Just take a moment.
This fantastic interview was just an example of the depth and content of those presenting at Celebrating Our Soul, Consciously Creating Change. Go to padntg.com to register. Be there for it. Time waits for no one. It's true. Regular registration for Celebrating Our Soul has closed. Fear not. Late registration is available. While there are limited seats, there is room for you if you register now. Go to padntg.com and register, and you will experience phenomenal live music, unique master classes, scrumptious food, and loving fellowship. Don't delay. Do it today. Go to padntg.com and join us at Celebrating Our Soul, Consciously Creating Change. See you there.
All right. And as I was listening to that, I just thought, what an opportunity to do some inside out changing while we're there, because every aspect of our being, physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, will be engaged and involved. So we'll have some perfect opportunities to do just that. Wow.
100%. Yes. It's
go ahead, Doc. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's an invitation. At
Yes.
least that's the way I'm sensing it and accepting it. It's an invitation to change, to
Yeah.
consciously change. And I
Yeah.
love this notion of celebrating our soul.
Yes.
Celebrating that that's even an option. Celebrating everything that we already have, everything required for that to be
Mm-hmm.
so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is good. I love that we're doing this. And I am thrilled and honored to be involved, to be included.
Yeah. And I just thought about something. You talked about the COVID experience, and the COVID experience in essence was almost 5 years ago. If we
Yes.
look at, you know, there's a big window of time that's passed. And and when I think about the time passing from this year's conference 5 years hence, when that one happens, what kind of evolution will have taken place? What kind of insights will have manifested internally and externally in terms of and how we do this work, if you will, and take care of ourselves? Which, excuse me, which leads me to this next question.
But
You
even
talked.
before you
Go ahead.
ask the question, may I
Yes,
hop
go ahead.
into that a
Go
little
get
bit?
it. Go get it. Go
Because
get it.
because here's what I think sometimes happens is we like the way you set it up that we've been through something. And frankly, I was shocked when you said almost 5 years. I had to do a little arithmetic in my head. And I was like, he's right. Why
Yeah.
am I still tripping about as if it was week before last kind of
Yeah.
thing? And then when you said, we wonder how it will be going forward.
Hmm.
This idea of consciously creating change allows us to be certain,
Yes.
to affect change, to choose it, to
Yeah.
declare it, to set a new cause in motion for a different outcome. For me, I see that the
Hmm.
way that I behaved was waiting for it to show me, waiting for the circumstance to unfold.
Right.
And then I would say what it is. We know as new thought practitioners, we know the power of our word, we know the power of our thought, we know our innate power. And
Yes.
when we forget, we have the resources to be reminded. Ask me how I know. And so, this idea of us not waiting to see how it unfolds,
Hmm.
us not waiting to see what are they going to say, how are they going to vote, waiting to see what the outcome is.
Yes.
The collective mind thought work, the collective
Hmm.
heart work
Yeah. Yeah.
to bring a more desirable, more beneficial, more just outcomes to bear.
Hmm. Hmm. Hmm.
Freedom, more peace, more love, more
Yeah.
prosperity,
Yeah.
which means less homelessness,
Yeah.
which means more. We were just talking in our leadership meeting this morning about us supporting a local school that I was just shocked. I can't give you the numbers, but I was shocked with how few teachers they had and
Hmm.
how many students, and three classes of, I think it makes it about 30 youngsters who are on the spectrum.
Hmm.
And I just thought about all who's doing that work, all that that requires, because just for teachers to do the lesson plan for those children who are the brightest,
Yeah. Yeah.
and the best behaved, all of that. But when you have a school full of children
Yeah.
who possibly, probably are not eating
Right.
until they get to school,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a whole other equation. So there are lots of opportunities for
Yeah.
us to practice what
Yeah.
we know. And this
Yeah.
is why I brought up Brian Stevenson,
Yes.
because it's as if he
Yes.
shows us here's what the practice of this can do. The
Yes.
vision, there's one room where I stood in the museum where the sign says that this used to be where the enslaved had to bring the cotton.
Mm.
know, and I think it was weight or whatever it was, but it was just that flip. You see what I'm saying? Somebody had to have a vision that what was is no more.
No
And
more.
it so isn't anymore till we're flipping it until it's something new. Oh, hallelujah. Oh, yes, yes.
You know, and the good thing about that, as you say that, you know, earlier on we talked about the conditions and the trauma and thing. And one of the things I think our community is I'll say getting more engaged in is this idea of self-care. And what I just heard you speak about spoke directly to that. And I'd love to hear, you know, your insights on that whole piece, if you will.
Well, I would need to whisper them because if my community heard me out telling somebody else about self-care, I think I'd have a little reckoning. It's a learning for me.
Yes.
You know, I've worked all my life. I really have. I was corporate employed at 16. And so I have worked literally. It's one of the ways, you know, some few years ago, I realized that that was my value, that so much of my value was contained in my work and that I could produce something,
Right.
that I was value added. And now, you know, as a mature woman, I I am doing my best to learn to take time
Yeah. Yeah.
and take time for me and be with me in new ways, speaking to myself in a different way. This notion of perfectly imperfect relationships is the inner relationship as well. It's the divine relationship. It's this inner relationship, Andriette with Andriette,
Yeah.
you know, and how she treats Andriette.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I get it, and I am leaning into it.
Yeah.
But clearly, it's not a thing that I have practiced so well that I even feel comfortable. I expect people to be, you know, snickering. Like, what? Her? She said what? About please. I want to hear it myself. Yeah. I'm a student. I'm working that out. I really am. I get the importance.
And the beauty of this is that you can express that, right?
Yeah.
And hopefully and ideally people can see someone who has accomplished and does such great work as you're still making that journey. You're still working through the challenges and the changes and the relationships because they're changing. And you know, what a great example to show everyone that the work is not done until the work is done.
And it ain't done.
And it ain't done. And
So here we are setting up now, going to the conference to do a phase of the work.
yes.
A phase of the work is speaking it out loud.
Yes.
A phase of the work is doing the preparation. This notion of consciously creating change requires some preparation.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Making some decisions, all the things. Yes.
And I love that, you know, that what you just said popped into, you know, one of the sayings we have in our tradition is we have to speak it into the space. We understand from an African tradition and from a New Thought position, we have to speak it into space because without that, the energy doesn't get a chance to do an assessment of the environment and to begin where it can and expand. And that's what I'm loving about this whole idea of all of the great speakers and master teachers that are coming, the whole idea of the young people. I did an interview with Reverend Jerry Hobby, and she's working with the youth there. And it's going to be a great opportunity for us to really come together to be ourselves.
Yes.
Right? We'll be around a group of African-American descended new thoughters where if I say a little colloquialism or I do some little funny thing, I ain't got to explain it or explain it away because we gonna know.
I love that.
We gonna know.
I love that. Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
want to ask this one, and it's a little offbeat, but I thought about it with the kids
Uh-huh.
about art and culture.
Mm.
Because our young people are really involved in art and culture, I think, right now in various ways, and no matter how it shows up. And that's a whole different opportunity for a relationship that
Mhm.
produces a definitely different outcome.
Mhm.
And I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
What popped to my mind right away is some of the work that Sean Ginwright did, with both
Mm-hmm.
organizations. His original organization, the name of which is escaping me right now. Oh, it just came and went. And the current organization is Flourish Agenda.
Mm,
This work with youth and taking them through experiences
yeah,
that
yeah,
help them both to form and to also release,
yes,
and the transformative power of engaging youngsters in powerful um, immersion programs and trainings. I know that my one of my nephews went through that program, and I'm someone, I stuttered and had a speech impediment as a youngster. And so my speech therapy was during school. So I simply left the class and went to another room with other
mm-hmm.
children who were apparently having the same thing. I never, it was so much fun.
Yeah.
What my only recollection of that was playing Candyland.
Ooh,
I don't know what else happened, and I know that I came not to stutter and not to be at the effect of the speech
mm-hmm.
impediment. And that's
Wow.
all we did. I don't
Wow.
recall repetitive activities, exercises. It was all couched in the frame of playing Candyland with
Wow.
children.
Wow.
So I have an affinity for creating ways of learning and shifting and opportunities for transformation that aren't just, you sit here and I'm going to be a talking head. And in the end, we're going to quiz you and it's going to be all good. So, for example, in our community, and this is adult level, and what
Mhm.
I know is as we are relaunching youth and family, we'll just see what the possibilities are for out of the box, like accelerated learning opportunities. I have a training background myself. And so like during our summer school, we invariably have a vignette. So folks are tuned in and they think they're just watching,
Mhm.
small group
Mhm.
work and all. And what I know is that there's a level, this notion of consciously creating change has a subconscious level to it as well
Yes.
of
Yes.
engagement.
Yes.
And so
Yes.
my prayer is that there's more of that for young folks,
Yeah.
that we're not all talking heads to them,
Yeah.
that we're
Yeah.
engaging them in opportunities and processes so that they can be engaged in it, and then on the way out they realize that there are other decisions that they can make,
Yeah.
that there are other
See that
possibilities for them.
that's generational wisdom right there because oftentimes as you were just articulating there, we tried, our generation, baby boomers, was a talking head kind of thing. We had little outlets, but most of it was a I'm going to give it to you, you're going to take
Right,
it in, you're going to give it back to me, and I'm going to
right.
determine if you got it. Whereas now the interaction with everything is especially with the AI stuff coming out now and the virtual reality, they
Yes,
can put you in the middle of a situation
yes,
and you there.
yes,
And so
yes,
we have to begin to allow them to teach us and and
yes.
and use that different art form and that whole culture that's going to emerge as a result of that, and it's going to create another opportunity for this relationship building.
Absolutely.
What a
Abs-
concept.
yeah,
Whoa.
yeah. Yeah.
It's exciting. It's
It's
exciting.
very exciting.
It's
It's very
exciting.
exciting. And I think it's because, in part, in large part, because we're having a conversation that shines the light on it.
Yes.
Very often, the
Yes.
conversation around youth is a doomsday kind of focus.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's not exciting at all.
No.
And when we do that, it's almost as if we act as if energy isn't a thing. So we pour all of this doomsday-esque
Yes.
energy into it, and then we're expecting them to like flourish right in our sight, you know? And so it's a real opportunity, real opportunity.
And,
And this, please, I hope there's not anyone who hears or sees this that that in any way perceives that my intention is to chastise or make
mm-mm,
anybody wrong about anything. Lord, no.
mm-mm,
We just doing
mm-mm.
the best we can, and I know we can do better.
And one thing that popped into my mind when you said that is when we look at some of the narratives that we take on or accept, they're narratives that other people are giving us. They're
Yes.
not even our own narratives.
Yes.
And so once we can begin to shake that off, then we'll begin to see and consciously create with intention our own narratives.
Hmm.
And from that, everything will be well connected, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's some good work for us, is to recreate
Mm-hmm.
our narrative.
Mm-hmm.
You know, just wow, and this is probably what is emerging as a part of my keynote. Well, yeah, because the title of my book and my column for
Mm-hmm.
the past 13 years has been From the Inside Out. And
Yes.
I'm a fan of the Pixar Inside Out. And of course, now
Right.
there's the two as
I
well.
haven't seen it yet.
Ah, so I'm a fan, I just have to say. And I want to say that my little cousin in New Orleans was on the team. Pixar created a team of youngsters who
Nice.
who advised them. And so they saw various clips, and sometimes they said, yes, that hits it spot on. And sometimes they said, that's too much with it.
Mm,
And so they really listened and
nice.
and had them participate fully in that. And I like that about that. But this notion just like day before yesterday, that recently, I had a bit of an upset at the bank
Mm,
around the level of customer service and how long and all the things. And so I spoke my little piece,
mm-hmm.
and I was on my way home, and I had a moment of realization that I was no longer physically in the bank, but I was still I was still all up in the bank, having, still have, and furthermore, having what to say. And so
Yes.
I thought this whole idea of what we are doing on the inside, that's the thing right there. It's
Yes.
the awareness. When I caught
Yes.
myself, I just
Yes.
laughed. I said, girl, you're not at the bank. Quit talking to the
Yes.
bank people. You're not at the bank. And so that, now I can almost use that as my little code thing. You're not at the bank.
Yes. Yes. Flip
Stop
the
talking
switch.
to the people at the bank while you at Safeway. You're not there. Leave them alone. Quit that. But I realized just what a slippery slope it is,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And again, I mean, I love the way this is just circling back on everything, is that we talked about the genealogy and Gates and telling our story. That's what that is. It
Yes.
is creating and telling our own narrative, taking pieces of narrative that have been fed to us and given us in a negative light. Now we have an opportunity to consciously recreate and tell our story,
Yes.
the whole of it, the good
Yep.
and the bad, as you said.
Yep. During my research, one of the books that really gave me the courage.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, I already had that. Supported me in
Yes, yes.
seeing what was mine to be and do and say
Mm-hmm.
was Black AF history. And
Yes.
Michael Herron made it so clear in the way that he did what I'm going to call flip the script.
Yes.
So it was the stories that many of us already knew, but when he finished with it, it was like, what?
Yes.
Oh my
Yes.
goodness, of course.
Yes.
Because we've been living often with pieces of stories
Yes.
that
Yes.
we made the whole story.
Yes.
And when we really get to begin doing the critical thinking, we realize that can't be the whole story.
Exactly.
That can't
Exactly.
be all nowhere close. And so he just kind of ripped the veil right off and exposed so much. And I feel like that's a thing for us.
Yeah.
Our new
Yeah.
narrative is a bold narrative.
Yeah.
It's a bold, bold narrative that is myth busting.
Yeah.
In its purity and truth.
And for us to have this opportunity at Celebrating Our Soul to do that as a people, as new thought practitioners, covering that whole thing. I am just, and I'm reading that book right now, by the way, and it's fabulous.
Isn't
It's
it though?
fabulous.
It sets you afire.
Yeah, it's fabulous.
Oh,
yeah.
Lord, he's brilliant.
Yeah. Yes.
Brilliant.
Yes. And so, man, I can't believe the time has just like went right by here. And I am just so happy and honored that you were here. And I just want to say, before we try to wrap up, is there anything that we've missed? Anything that you want us to know about your work, the book, the keynote, relationships, any of it, all of it?
Well, let me just say about the book, because this is an opportunity and I'm so glad.
Yes.
This is the first time I've talked about it. So the book is just coming out. I mean,
Nice.
just. So I'm expecting that they're going to ship a few copies to me. So I'll have a few copies and I'll be telling folks where they can get it. Every place they sell books, it can be ordered or purchased. But I'm very, very excited about this work. I am. And so I would appreciate the support. I would very much appreciate the support around this book, and, folks just getting a copy and opening it however they choose. And of course it's available. It'll be available as ebook and that as well. And I'd love to have an opportunity to read it for those folks who want an audiobook version of it, and just, support me, if you will, and having this be all those things and squeeze all
that
the
is a
juice out of
foregone conclusion. It will be supported immensely, and I'm looking forward to getting my copy. And if I get it before I get it there, I'm going to have some ink somewhere for you to write something on it. Because here is the thing, as we close, and this whole thing about consciously creating. We have to begin, as you're describing so eloquently right now, we have to create our own work, tell our own story, look at things from our own perspective, not to the exclusion of anybody else or any of that.
Right.
But there is a vision and an environment that we've grown up in, continue to grow up in, the way we see things, that the medicine, if you will, has to be given with a little spoonful of sugar sometime. And
talk about the medicine. That's right. Yeah.
And boom, now we're working with something. And so I am overjoyed to have this time together. I look forward to seeing you in person, and can't believe it, couple of weeks, 3 weeks about. And it's going to be a fabulous time, everyone. So if you have not been able to make your mind up and get a ticket, now's the time to do it. And if you can't make it, there are some virtual opportunities, and I'm going to play that piece just one more time so everyone can see it, and then we're going to close out. Thank you so much, Doctor, for being with us. I look forward to seeing you, and peace and blessings, everyone. Here we go.
Thank you.
Time waits for no one. It's true. Regular registration for Celebrating Our Soul has closed. Fear not, late registration is available. While there are limited seats, there is room for you if you register now. Go to padntg.com and register, and you will experience phenomenal live music, unique masterclasses, scrumptious food, and loving fellowship. Don't delay. Do it today. Go to padntg.com and join us at Celebrating Our Soul, Consciously Creating Change. See you there. This fantastic interview was just an example of the depth and content of those presenting at Celebrating Our Soul, Consciously Creating Change. Go to padntg.com to register. Be there for it.